Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. This is Keith May from Richey Main Company. We still have some people signing on. We're going to go ahead and get started so we can finish up on time here. So welcome to our CFO webinar series. So today we have our very first guest speaker, Don Brown from Secondary Interactive, is going to provide us with his wisdom on the hedge side, talk about mining pipeline leakage, and talking about different commitment strategies. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Don, and I'll talk to you guys at the end of the conference. Take it away, Don.
Thank you very much, Keith. As Keith said, it's Don Brown of Secondary Interactive. I'm going to thank the Richey May team for providing this opportunity, and I'm hoping there's some wisdom involved, and we'll kind of dive into it. So my topic today is again to kind of talk to you about how we go about helping companies find and identify leakage in their pipeline, and as well as some trends or how we work with companies to look at alternative commitment strategies. And more specifically, kind of some of the cash flow implications of those strategies for the company. I will say off the top of this that if there's questions, I think there's ability to ask them electronically. But if for some reason that doesn't work out, feel free to contact me directly. My email is dbrown@secondaryinteractive.com, and phone number is 303-483-2190. So just as a quick agenda and really as a foundation towards getting to pipeline leakage, I'm going to talk a little bit about accurate data, because from our perspective, good data makes good hedging, good data makes good secondary, and certainly probably that applies to good accounting as well. And that accurate mark-to-market valuations, again, building on that foundation, quantifying then getting into pipeline leakage. What can we do to quantify mark-to-market variances that happen as we go through the process? We'll touch a little bit on pricing reconciliation, and then we'll get into the alternative commitment structures. Again, as a foundation for a good secondary platform, it's just critical that your data be as accurate as possible. We take the approach where we scrub data that comes into the system, any pipeline data that's uploaded from any of our clients, and we're scrubbing that for a couple different characteristics. The approach that we've taken in our system is that we've got the eligibility, investor eligibility and pricing through our partners at Optimal Blue embedded in the system. And so we can scrub both for data errors, what I call logical errors. So for instance, a 5-digit FICO or a loan that's maybe moved unexpectedly in the process, and we can point those out to the clients right away on our application so that you can address those before they become problems. Secondarily, we are scrubbing also for eligibility problems. So if a loan characteristic changes, say the FICO moves from 750 to 650, and all of a sudden there's no place that loan is eligible for, we point that out so that the information in the pipeline, the foundation of that information or the conclusions you're making from that can be relied upon, because we know that the information is solid. And that's just a tremendous and an important foundation when you're trying to do any kind of analysis like this. That allows us to accurately price the loan, and then, as I said, understand the fiscal impact of those changes. So what I've got up on the screen right now is just a quick snapshot of in our application when it identifies an error, and we classify those errors over here in severity as either minor, major, or critical, based on how significant they affect your day-to-day workflow. These all are major errors in here, and this is just a slide, so there's no active application here, but it gives you the ability to click through in these magnifying glasses so you can identify what the problem is. But so, for example, in this one here, I'll just circle this one about 5, 6 down or so. says no eligible products returned to the designated investor. So what's happened here is that the client has earmarked this as a loan that has to go to a specific investor, let's say a Wells only or a Chase only, and it's not eligible for that investor. So this gives the client the ability to identify that, figure out what's wrong, and either remove it from the hedge or recommit it somewhere else or take off the designation. This is an example of where you get to in that screen when you're actually looking at that designation. So essentially, this is a list of why that loan isn't eligible, and it gives you all the disqualifiers here on the right. So again, pretty detailed information that allows you to make those or to react to those errors in your pipeline. Again, the goal is to work from perfect data every day. The next kind of foundational concept that I want to get out on the table is accurate loan valuation. So in order to tell how something's affected or how leakage is happening, it's critical to have an accurate loan valuation so that you know when that changes, you can kind of discern why it changed. So what we're doing in our system is we're bringing in actual investor and agency pricing structures. So it's not modeling a potential execution, but actually looking at each client's specific commitment structures, be they investor or aggregator related or agency related with your own servicing component, doing a best execution and assigning a value to that loan, including all loan level pricing adjusters and all the factors that go into creating that price. By doing that, we're able to then assess when something changed or when a loan characteristic changed and the impact that it actually has on the pipeline. So the screen that I just brought up is an example of what we call our unrealized mark-to-market. And it shows you the loans on the left side here. Well, first of all, let me back up for a second. It shows you the loans that are in error mode. So there's 4 million loans, 4.3 million loans in this mark-to-market that aren't being priced and need to get fixed here, these 34 major exceptions, so that you have an accurate mark. We are taking Keith's advice where he said that you really ought to put some sort of measurement on that those 26 loans so that we have some idea of what the mark is. I guess it was our original intent to force people to try to fix those, but not everything is immediately fixable. So we're moving in that direction at Keith's suggestion. But get back to the report. So we've got all the loans that are in a locked stage. Ones that are closed, what we mean by closed is committed to an investor but not yet purchased, or excuse me, closed is funded. I apologize. So these are the ones that are in the hedge. Down below are the ones that are committed to an investor but not yet purchased. And so again, this gives us an accurate valuation of all the loans and then the trades on the right side that are in the pipeline. So now that you have that foundation of accurate data as well as an accurate loan valuation, then you can start to work on what's happening to the pipeline as the loans move through the various statuses. Again, you can't manage it if you can't measure it, and so we strive to try to measure as much as possible. What we're doing then every day or every time new data comes into the system is measuring the changes in the pipeline as that loan data changes. So if somebody changes the FICO or a loan amount or an appraised value, and that has an impact on the pricing of that loan, we then have the ability to display that for you. Just to kind of give you a quick hedging 101, and really this is the only slide I have on this. Essentially, just for those who may be unfamiliar, this is a very simplified example from a hedging perspective, but essentially loans come into the pipeline on day one, let's just say at par. Right, we're going to sell forward the TBA or the hedge, the mortgage-backed forward on the mortgage-backed security. We're say sell that forward at the same, a similar price, and then as the loan sells, right, the price moves. Let's say this is an example of an improving market. The market's improved by a point, so you sell that loan and you make a point plus whatever that best efforts mandatory spread is, right? But then you have to buy back the hedge side, so you buy that back. You lost a point on that. So at the end of the day, you've created this best efforts mandatory pickup. The goal then, in doing so, what the model is doing is managing really 4 types of risk: two of which are managed in the model. There's basis risk, which has to do that assumption on the previous slide here that the security pricing is going to move consistently with the loan pricing. If that doesn't happen, that's what we call basis risk. Product risk is another type of risk where the guidelines or the underlying foundational aspects of the product change while the loan's in the hedge, and therefore you don't have an investor to go to. Obviously, product and basis risk are managed by just holding loans outside of the hedge. But the main two risks that we're managing is price risk and delivery risk. So delivery risk, probably more commonly known as fallout. You know, the price is going to move every day, and that's really what the hedge is designed to deal with. But delivery risk is how we're modeling the pull-through. And so one of probably the largest significant risk factor in any hedging program is dealing with unmodeled pull-through volatility. And that's going to lead, you know, not necessarily to death and disaster, but it certainly can lead to a diminution in performance of the hedge itself. So our goals in any hedging program is to what we call preserve your predetermined profit margin. So if you price $1.50 into that loan, at the very least, we want to make sure we preserve that, and then capture as much of the best efforts mandatory spread that the market will make available to you. It doesn't necessarily equate that the performance over best efforts. This was a point that it took me a long time to really wrap my head around, but essentially we measure performance over margin. If you do over best efforts, it's a bit of a moving target. Best efforts pricing will come out in the morning, at 8 in the morning, say, and if you lock that loan in 2 in the afternoon, there's market movement in there that will dilute your measurement of hedge performance by that market movement. So if you just look at performance over margin, you're getting a true measure of how the hedge performs. So when we back up here and we talk about hedge efficiency, essentially what we're trying to do is compare, you know, what you made, the profit on the hedge, if you will, versus what you could have made. Ideally, you can earmark all of the consequences that detract from hitting that margin. You know, for example, if you're using a TBA strategy to hedge, you're going to have to trade with a broker-dealer. Typically, they're going to charge you a tick, which is 1/32 on each trade. So right there, you've got an opportunity for leakage. It's understood and planned leakage, but nonetheless, it's going to diminish the performance from what it could be. Unmodeled pull-through, price adjustments, loan extensions that you don't charge back to the borrower. You know, any myriad of things could happen that will diminish your hedge performance. I suppose there could be negative slippage or findage, if you will, as one of our clients calls it, and that's possible as well, to the extent that that the model performs inaccurately but results in a bank error in your favor, if you will. Nonetheless, it's our goal to strive to quantify as much of that as possible. Constantly moving targets, and it's certainly not an exact science, and I put yet there in quotes. We are rapidly working to be able to actually give you that pipeline level quantification. What we've done so far, and what I'm going to kind of highlight on this presentation, is that we give a very accurate day-to-day day-to-day mark-to-market variance. So I can tell you exactly how your mark changed from yesterday to today and what caused either the value of the loans to change or the value of the trades to change, and report very accurately on that. The next step in that is to take that to a periodic level so that we can look over periods of time where your hedge inefficiency was or over the life of a loan. So our approach, as I said, was we start with the target. What is that best efforts mandatory spread? We quantify the efficiency of the pull-through. We look at the predetermined profit margin, which we can pull for one of the benefits of again, having the product eligibility and pricing system in the same system with the hedging system. So our Optimal Blue partners is being able to extract that margin right out of the lock information. So as soon as you hit that accept lock, we've got all the characteristics of those loans immediately and understand exactly what the margin that you priced into that loan is. Otherwise, we typically get this from your loan origination system, just not as quite a timely extraction of that data. We're going to look at basis risk and other leakage factors, the loan characteristic changes, and then quantify the operational efficiencies. So I put this slide in here because one of the things I've experienced over the years that I've been in this business is that there's especially for clients that are moving from best efforts to mandatory, there's a desire to get what we call a loan level mark to market, which is really kind of an illusory concept. It's something that's very comforting in a best efforts world because you know what you priced that loan for, what you sold that loan for, and therefore what you made on the Smith loan. The challenge in a hedging or a mandatory type environment is that there is no one-to-one correlation between the loan itself and the trade. So, for example, you may take in $1 million worth of loans on day one, and so we'd sell forward, let's say 80% pull-through, we'd sell forward $800,000 worth of coverage. On day two, just to make a very simple example, say another $1 million comes in, but another $1 million, well, 500,000 falls out. So we only had 500,000 net change in the pipeline. So now we sell forward another 400,000, but we're not covering the same loans that we had on day one because half of those loans are gone. So we didn't pair out of 400,000 and add a new trade. So you can begin to see how the loans and the trades become disjointed pretty quickly. We try to time them as good as possible, but it's hard without making some assumptions to get down to that loan level dynamic. We have chosen, rather than to make those assumptions, for instance, that this loan could have gone into this coupon and it came in at 9 a.m. and this coupon was priced at that certain price at 9 a.m. and then it was sold, and do the same math. Rather than to make those assumptions and come up with that mythical loan level data, it's better to train a company to move towards a pipeline type measurement, because no matter what assumptions we're going to make, they're not going to pencil out to the numbers that you're seeing out of your financial system. So I always use the analogy, when you move, or when you're looking at your financial statement for month end or year end, it doesn't tell you what you made on the Smith loan. It just gives you an overall picture, and that's really the leap you need to make when you go to a mandatory environment, is to look at pipeline level performance on a periodic basis. This slide is an example, the next couple slides actually are an example of starting that process. So when we start to set the target, right, you need to come up with some methodology to define what the best efforts mandatory spread was at any given time. We send this index out try to do it on a weekly basis. We generate it on a weekly basis. We get it out most of the time like that. And essentially what we're looking at, when you're trying to spread that or identify what that spread is, it's kind of tempting to look at, one investor. So you kind of look at what Wells Fargo's best efforts is today versus what Wells Fargo's mandatory is today, and say that's the best efforts mandatory spread. The reality is, though, that that's not how our clients or most clients are operating. They're doing some sort of best execution across multiple investors, maybe on a best effort side, maybe on a mandatory side, and backing off a margin off of that, but doing some sort of best execution on the front side, and